Now, as we get to composing and decomposing shapes, one of the things that's important is for students to be able to compare shapes and figures. So the language of these shapes and figures is going to be really important here. And we want to get students talking about this language, particularly for our two-dimensional shapes, but often for our three-dimensional figures. Students haven't had as much language practice with those figures. And then we want students to be able to compare and contrast, and we'll give a few activities about what that might look like. Now, as we get to composing, this would be constructing different shapes. So here, maybe I take these sticks and can I compose a shape with them? Well, here I could compose a almost square, but then I could also decompose that square into the 4 line segments. We'll look at a few different manipulatives that can help with this composing and decomposing of these shapes and figures. Then we want to provide a lot of visual supports to students, particularly if they struggle to see how shapes can be composed. For example, these 2 triangles can be put together to create a square, or can I create another shape with those 2 triangles? Oh, look at this, now I've created a parallelogram. We can go to composing and decomposing sets of shapes. So here's where some of that compare contrast comes into play. Maybe I figure out, well, is there something I can build with these shapes? I'll have to move to the side there so you can see it. And then once I construct something, maybe a little bit like this rocket ship here, I could also draw a replica to see how each of those shapes were used to construct this composite shape. Now, speaking of those manipulatives, let's look at some manipulatives that students might want to use to help them with composing and decomposing shapes. All right, one manipulative we might want to use are these attribute blocks. Here I could use these and move them around to compose different shapes. Maybe I think about how these hexagons might fit together to make a composite shape there. Maybe I think about how these rectangles might fit together to a square and these rectangles to make a larger rectangle. Here I'm composing, and then I can also decompose these shapes. Now, the attribute blocks are nice. I know a lot of people have those in their classroom. I'm going to go ahead and scoot those to the side because let's think about some other manipulatives we might use to help with composing and decomposing shapes. What about our pattern blocks? Probably a lot of you have these as well. These are really nice for shapes. They're also good for fractions and good for tessellations. But I'll go ahead and pull in some of my different pattern blocks here. So here I can take these and I can put them together to make different shapes. Maybe I want to create, well, I'll think about a little person, all right? Now you gotta laugh at my little person, but they're gonna have a hat on there that I'm gonna make a little belly for them. And then maybe I want to show that they have hands and I'll show that they have legs, all right? Then I'll move all my other shapes out of there. All right, Sarah, you did a good job here with creating this person. And then maybe I think about, well, what shapes were used to compose this person? Well, I have 1, 2, 3 trapezoids. I have 2 triangles. I have 2 rhombus, and then I have 1 hexagon. So that is one way that I could use these pattern blocks to compose, and then look at that, I can decompose my shapes. I just deconstructed there. Now, one other manipulative that you might want to use are those angle legs. A little bit earlier, we used those to construct different shapes. Remember, I can just pin these together to make different shapes. Maybe I want to compose some type of shape that has multiple triangles within it. So here, I could pin these nice line segments together. Maybe I'll add just one more there, to then show that I composed a shape that has 1, 2, 3 triangles in it, but I also composed a trapezoid. So there's a lot of different ways that we can use these angle legs, here they are again, to make different shapes, and then I can use them to compose and decompose. And maybe I want to get just even a little bit funky here today. I'm allowed to get funky when I'm here making these videos. And I'm just going to go ahead and compose and add this other triangle to my composite shape to show all the different ways that I can use manipulatives to help students compose and decompose shapes. So that brings us to activity 3, where I'd like you to think about how would you help your students with composing shapes. So describe different activities or materials you would use to help students have those practice opportunities to compose shapes.